The Spirit of Violin. The dreaded day arrived. 3 municipal police officers knocked on the door of the home where Ivan lived with his parents. Impotent, the family remained embraced between tears of despair. Moses, his father, had been unemployed for 3 years. The mortgage on the apartment fell on the family as a slab. The community of Madrid had granted them a small pension, but together with the sporadic income they got in temporary and poorly paid jobs, they could not meet the requirements of the financier, who now came to take what, according to the law, belonged to them. The neighbors rebuked the agents before such dehumanized intervention. But justice is blind and lacks a heart. It is like a mace that crushes the weak without contemplation. There was a struggle that immediately ended in a violent attack by Moses on one of the policemen. Ivan, with a shrunken heart, could not understand what was happening. Literally, they pulled the 3 dragons to the building's portal. Ivan's positivity and affection for his parents was like a balm of hope. Mrs. Fortu, a very dear neighbor in the block of flats, offered a room to the family. There they settled, demonstrating to her endless signs of gratitude. The boy encouraged his parents to do something so that the thoughts inside their heads would not affect them. Moses, he unhitched his guitar and began to sing in the subway cars. He was pleasantly surprised to count the first collection, €163 in just a few hours. I should not do it so badly, he thought, heading towards Mrs. Fortu's house. Meanwhile, his wife Rocchio helped the elderly benefactress in household chores. I went shopping, made food and cleaned the house. A harmonious collaboration had been established. Now the owner of the apartment felt accompanied, and the evicted family had a roof to shelter. It was 8:30, one cold afternoon on the eve of the new year. Moses presented himself with gifts for all. He had collected €190, and he was radiant with happiness, and with an immense desire to surprise those gathered there. They received him with great joy. There were hugs, also gifts. Ivan's mother had prepared an exquisite dinner, as the occasion demanded. Guitar in hand, Moises sang the classic carols, accompanied by the voices of those around him. Mrs. Fortu radiated happiness. She had lived many years in solitude, although the neighbors held her in great esteem. The dinner ended with a toast to the new year that was born. They raised the champagne glasses high to say goodbye to the year that was already history, when suddenly, the good old woman fell to the ground with her eyes blank. Moses took it carefully and laid it on the bed in his room. Rocchio immediately called an ambulance. It did not take long to arrive, and when she was carried on a stretcher outside the apartment, she opened her eyes and addressed Ivan. He told him, "The violin you find on the living room furniture is for you. If you learn to touch it with a heart, it will take you out of poverty and give you immense happiness. God bless you all." At the end of this sentence, he expired right there. The nurses certified her death and she was transferred to the funeral home. The next day, Ivan's parents, and he himself, went to the funeral with a wreath of flowers showing all the gratitude that the good woman deserved. Moses approached, placing the flowers at the feet of the coffin. He crossed himself, pronounced a prayer and went to the wake room. Several neighbors of the community building also attended. When he approached his wife Rocchio, she was talking to 2 older women. They were Fortu's sisters. They never came to see her, but now present at her funeral, they claimed the inheritance of the apartment. The days passed, and the astute sisters went to an old friend from the town who was a lawyer, beginning the paperwork and necessary paperwork to recover the property for them. If show even the slightest hint of compassion, they came without warning and invaded the property, instigating the family with hateful manners. On one occasion, when Moses was away, Rocchio had prepared a delicious apple pie, which he kindly offered to the bellicose women. One of them, called Pascula, took the cake and stamped it against the body of the good mother. Ivan contemplated the scene from a mysterious tranquility, as if he were in a watchtower safe from any event that might hurt him. He threw a dart of tenderness from his clear, sincere eyes towards the 2 women, and stripped them of all hint of hatred and rage. They stood like two bizarre statues looking at the boy, who never stopped smiling. They could not stand the look of Ivan, and without saying a word, turning around, they left their pretended apartment and left. Many days passed without that the two women appear in the house of their deceased sister, while Ivan's father inspired his son to learn to play the violin and accompany him in his raids on the Madrid subway. He refused such a proposal. Meanwhile, in secret, the boy related to the instrument as if it were a friend. He liked classical music, but he had never shared this hobby with anyone, for fear of being ridiculed. Time passed like a river without return, and everything seemed to be going well. Moises continued contributing his collected revenues honestly in his rounds by the meter, always with your guitar as a company. A bad day, while singing one of his favorite songs, he suffered a heart attack. He collapsed on the floor of one of the wagons on line 5 of the Madrid subway. He was attended by a nurse who at that time was traveling in the same car. He stabilized him by practicing everything that is usually done in these cases. An ambulance took him to a hospital, where they managed to stabilize him urgently, although the doctor later reported a very serious diagnosis to his son and wife, who quickly came to keep him company. Mother, son. They looked with sadness and concern at the body of Moses. His breathing was so slow that it felt like he was already dead. Ivan did not let go of his sweating and trembling hand, while I was telling him, "Dad, resist, you're going to get well, and we will make together a wonderful orchestra that has to be heard in every corner of Madrid." Suddenly, his father opened his eyes, and looking at those of his son full of tears, he asked, "Have you brought the violin?" Ivan answered yes. He took it out of its case and showed it to his father. Ivan was still in the learning period, but he did not hesitate for a moment. He played the instrument and began to play music that seemed to come from heaven itself. The boy's face lit up, without stopping looking at his beloved father, who at the same time showed now a face resplendent and full of joy. He began to feel better and better, to the point of pushing aside the sheets on the side of the bed and getting rid of all the probing and monitoring. Doctors and nurses ran to avoid such madness, but stopped short with wide eyes, seeing the patient floated more than a meter on his bed. The same happened in the adjoining rooms, with the rest of the patients, who left their beds, and after dressing, they left the hospital before the amazement of all the staff of the health center. When they returned home, when they opened the door, they were surprised to see Mrs. Fortu's sisters, sitting next to their friend the lawyer. Pascuala spoke and told them to pick up their things and leave the apartment, while showing them an eviction order. The knight stood up, to be more forceful. Ivan unholstered the violin again. The bow slid over the strings like the caress of a mother, over the face of her newborn son. Instantly the whole house was flooded by an adage that was not of this world. The sisters and their friend showed a relaxed and happy face. They felt light as a feather. Pascuala asked the lawyer to break the eviction order and to extend a document of cession of the apartment to the family, and so it was done. That was a very special violin, no doubt, but this whole story was just the beginning. Ivan and his father Moises went out every day to play at the Puerta del Sol and other squares in Madrid. When listening to such wonderful music, people showed to others their most kind and tender part, and everything was in solidarity, and they shared the best of themselves. Such strange news spread throughout the capital like an oil stain. It was the end of the year, and they were invited to perform on television. Each chime of the clock of La Puerta del Sol was accompanied by some notes from the wonderful violin. And finally it was different, because people woke up from a dream of darkness in which they had been immersed for centuries.